Welcome and settle in as we drift together toward a quiet corner of the world where the sun steps away for a long while and the air hums with a steady, distant softness. A place where time feels unspooled and the body listens for cues that do not come. Imagine yourself at the edge of a white continent, in the calm cradle of polar night in Antarctica, where the horizon and the sky melt into a single dark blue velvet, and your breath lifts slowly like tiny clouds that hang and fade. As you listen, the wind steps in and out, gentle and persistent, threading the cold through every seam of the station walls, as if reminding you that outside, everything sleeps beneath a blanket of ice and long, silver shadows. If this feels soothing, and you would like more slow, sleepy journeys like this one, you can gently tap like and subscribe, and you can find a playlist in the description that will keep teaching you in soft whispers while you drift. How sleepy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Inside, the lights are low and the hallway hums with the quiet, careful sounds of life preserved against the calm vastness outside. Your footsteps cushion against floor tiles, warm just enough to be kind to your ankles. A kettle clicks and breathes a small exhale of steam. The air feels dry but clean, touched by the faint scent of paper, linen, and metal warmed by circuits. The station clock says it is evening, but evening has become an idea rather than a colour, a label rather than a hue. The sky beyond the double-pane windows is a steady black, sometimes softened by a pale auroral brushstroke that glides across the dark like slow water, and sometimes frosted with diamond dust, microscopic ice drifting on the lightest air. You notice your body, patient and adaptive, seeking a rhythm in the absence of sunrise, waiting for a cue that does not arrive, creating a rhythm of its own. In the gentle interiors of your mind, a small cluster of cells keeps time. It is called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it rests like a careful metronome at the base of the brain, just above where your optic nerves cross. It listens for light. In most places on Earth, light arrives every morning, and the clock takes an easy breath of certainty. It leans toward day with a smooth shift, and as night comes, it watches the light fall away and makes its soft corrections. In deep polar night, the light hardly arrives at all, and the clock begins to express its own idea of a day, a little longer than 24 hours, just enough to drift like a slow tide along the shore of reality. Imagine your inner day as a quiet carousel that prefers to turn a little too slowly, without the sun's touch to nudge it back into place. Each day begins a little later, and sleep slips forward like a gentle ribbon, and waking waits until waking feels right. You might find yourself walking the station's silent corridor at what the clock calls 9 in the evening, with eyes wide and body alert, because your inner night has decided that this is still late afternoon. The circadian system, in its calm, persistent way, jealously guards the timing of many rhythms, not just sleep. Your core temperature draws a slow curve over each day, dipping gently before dawn and rising in the afternoon. Only now, dawn is not an event in the sky, and the curve drifts forward by a handful of minutes with each cycle. Your hormones respond in tandem. Melatonin, a quiet messenger of darkness, spreads through your bloodstream in a careful wave when the body believes night has arrived. Cortisol, which helps you meet the morning, lifts like a pale sunrise within you, whether or not the world outside glows. In polar night, both of these waves can lose amplitude, flattening into humbler swells, and their peaks may decouple from the clock on the wall. There is nothing alarming in this, only a reminder that your inner rhythms evolved with a partner in the sky, and when the partner steps out, the dance becomes a solo. Inside the station, there are small anchors of time that your body appreciates. Breakfast at the same hour, a walk on the treadmill with its gentle mechanical cadence, a conversation with a colleague whose laugh appears at predictable times in the day, the soft ping of a scheduled call back to home, heat cycles moving through pipes with a modest circadian pattern, just enough to suggest a shape to the day. These are zeitgebers, time givers, and while they do not possess the authority of the sun, they behave like reassuring companions, whispering to your biology that some order persists. When you sit with a bowl of warm soup at midday, or what the clock declares as midday, the warmth and nourishment travel further than your stomach. They spill into the gentle dialogues that your cells maintain with one another, the delicate harmonies that align the liver with the gut, the heart with the brain, the muscles with the marrow. It is not drama. It is a soft choreography, sustaining you. Imagine yourself slipping on a parka and stepping through the airlock, then out onto the snow at what the schedule has named late afternoon. The world presses close with its simple honesty. Snow underfoot is granular and squeaks with a faint, rubbery chirp as your boots compress the crystals. Your breath hangs around your scarf in feathery halos, and the sky has the texture of velvet tinted with plum, indigo, and coal. Sometimes a ribbon of green aurora eases its way along the invisible magnetic lines, trembling like silk pulled gently across still water. The wind brushes your hood. There is no sun to hold up your sense of time. Even your shadow, if any, comes not from the sun, but from the ambient glow of the station and the undecided light of the sky. In this setting, your circadian clock leans into its preferences. It lengthens its day, sometimes by 10 minutes, sometimes by 20, depending on the person, inching toward its free running period, that quiet domain where, absent external command, your body keeps time in a way that feels softly inevitable. Chronobiologists have known this for a while, not only from polar studies, but from careful, quiet observations in underground bunkers and caves where people lived without clocks or sunlight. In these studies, which unfolded like long, patient songs, Participants discovered that without signals, sleep arrived later and later, and waking followed suit, sliding forward by minutes each day. The internal day grew longer than the astronomical day by a small margin, the sort of margin you only notice when the sun stops appearing. In modern work on circadian timing, the free running period sits, on average, just over 24 hours. In polar night, you can sense this, not as a number, but as a feeling that night takes its time and day takes its time, and your routines slide with a gentle persistence. Inside, the station remains a modest ship in a dark sea. Each room has its own acoustic fingerprint. The hydroponics room, with its careful rows of lettuce, basil, and small tomatoes, breathes softly through damp fans, and the air here feels kinder to your throat, a little warmer, a little more fragrant, with a memory of soil and a whisper of green. You like to sit here with a notebook, and the pages feel friendly under your fingertips. Plants themselves keep their own clocks, opening and closing their stomata in cycles, leaning toward light when it is offered, holding still when it is not. Even without the sun, these plants respond to the lighting that humans give them. When the grow lights ramp up with a gentle dawn simulation, the leaves brighten almost imperceptibly, like someone about to speak. When lights dim, they fold into a composed quiet. You feel connected to this rhythm, and your breathing finds a similar hush. Light does not have to be bright to matter. The quality of light presses gentle fingerprints onto your biology. Within your eyes live special cells, melanopsin-containing ganglion cells, that send a simple message about brightness to the clock in your brain. They listen most closely to blue light, like the clear blue of a midday sky. In polar night, station lights can be tuned, dimmed, and colored to speak softly and wisely to your tissues. Cool, brighter light offered in the early hours helps nudge your inner day earlier. Warm, amber light in the evening helps your system understand that night has arrived. If the station keeps this up with care, providing consistent cues, your body can anchor itself more steadily, the free-running drift softened by regular reminders. People build these systems on space stations too, where day and night cycle 16 times a day as the spacecraft circles the Earth. And yet human bodies need only one day with one slow unfolding. Consistency is the gift. You might notice, over days and weeks, that the urge to sleep arrives at different clock times, though the feeling of it remains comfortably familiar. Before sleep, you may feel a gentle slowing, a softened focus, the subtle weight of eyelids. Sleep arrives with a composition that also has its own rhythms. It opens with a slide into NREM sleep, a world of quiet repair where slow waves wash across the brain like tides washing a shoreline clean. Later, REM sleep arrives with its vivid but muted stories, a maker of dreamscapes, a weaver of memory and mood. The timing of these cycles rides upon your inner day. If your circadian night has migrated forward by 40 minutes, the pattern of deep sleep and REM shifts with it. gliding along like a ring on a ribbon. In deep polar night, if you stay up later than your inner night, you may find the first slices of sleep a little shallow because your clock has not yet opened the gate for deep rest. If you go to bed too early for your internal time, sleep may take its time in arriving. None of this is a failure. It is a conversation between the body's homeostatic need for sleep, which builds as you spend more hours awake, and the circadian permission to sleep, which rises and falls like a tide. These two processes, the need to sleep and the timing of sleep, co-author your nights and days. If you wait long enough, the need to sleep grows like a steady, quiet pressure, and you will find rest even if the clock on the wall is unhelpful. However, rest deepens when the bowing of circadian night overlaps with the arc of sleep need, and in this alignment, sleep feels like sinking into warm sand beside a still lake. You can help this alignment along with routines, even in polar night. Stepping into bright light at the same moment each morning, eating meals at regular times, moving your body at repeated intervals with gentle predictability, dimming lights and screens in the soft approach to bedtime. These are kindnesses to your biology. They are not hard rules. They are gentle agreements between you and your inner timekeeper, carried out with patience and care. Around mid-season, the station community braces itself for a mood that is peculiar to many winter overs. It is not a storm, more like a quiet overcast in the spirit, a thinning of enthusiasm that coincides with the middle stretches of long dark. Memory plays a part, traditions too. There is a midwinter celebration that stations observe with shared meals, small handwritten notes, film screenings, and old-fashioned cards sent from other stations across the continent. A simple proof that other small ships sail in the same night. Music drifts down hallways. A laugh echoes. The people in the station gently protect one another's rhythms. They share light therapy units in the morning. They pour tea in the afternoon. They respect sleep windows. They listen. The body responds with gratitude. Melatonin secretion becomes a little more regular. Cortisol steadies. The amplitude of temperature rhythms strengthens. There is an easing. Consider, for a moment, the athletes of routine, the organs that rely on daily rehearsal. Your liver synchronizes gene expression to the light-dark cycle and to the feeding schedule. Your pancreas anticipates meals and primes insulin secretion to moderate swings in blood sugar. Your gut microbiome dances with the daily tide of nutrients. In the absence of a sunrise, these dances take cues from the timing of your meals. A warm breakfast signals the start of inner day, even when the world outside remains night. A late, heavy dinner signals that inner day continues, and your system may push its sleep gate forward. In polar night, humans find it helpful to separate meals by the rhythms they want to live, with breakfast and lunch heavier, and the evening meal lighter, leaving enough time for the body to drift toward night without confusion. This is not a doctrine, only a gentle observation, and when you follow it, you may notice a pleasant steadiness. If you stand quietly in a doorway late in what your schedule calls evening, the station around you is serene. The air recycler hums like a small stream. A light on the coffee machine glows a comforting amber. Shapes of winter coats hang in a neat row, their zippers glinting softly. The snow outside creaks in light gusts like a living wood floor. Somewhere, a small paper calendar is pinned to a bulletin board, and the squares are carefully filled in with pen, with tasks and names, and you can almost hear the time passing as a calm rustle rather than a tick. Sleepiness arrives without worry, a gentle invitation rather than a command, and you imagine it as a tide coming in with a slow, persistent hush. There is joy in accepting that your inner day in polar night may not match the clock's numbers without effort. The station's clock is a social tool, a promise that meal times and work sessions synchronize, making life easier for everyone. Your inner clock is a biological instrument, a tunable, resilient device that cares about patterns more than labels. When both clocks find a compromise, you feel comfortable. If your inner day is consistently longer than 24 hours, your body will prefer to fall asleep later, and you can use morning light to reach out and gently pull the rhythm back. If your clock is shorter than 24 hours, you may prefer to wake earlier, and evening light can be softened to prevent it from drifting earlier still. People differ. Some are larks, some are owls. In polar night, these tendencies become more pronounced. The trick is not to fight them with sharp effort, but to guide them with patient hands. Temperature matters in a tender way. Your body associates a slight cooling of the core with night, a signal that sleep is welcome. This happens naturally with the circadian rhythm of temperature, which dips in the pre-dawn hours. In polar night, if the station is kept at a constant warmth, you can simulate a gentle temperature curve through behavior. A warm bath or shower in the evening helps the skin dilate, allowing heat to leave the body more efficiently, leading to a gradual, sleep-friendly cooling of the core afterward. A cooler bedroom reinforces the signal. In the morning, a bright light and a warmer kitchen can signal inner day. The first sips of a warm drink feel like sunlight in your chest. These little cues accumulate, forming a kind and consistent pattern. People who cannot perceive light through the eyes, such as those with certain forms of complete blindness, experience a related challenge, often living with non-24-hour sleep-wake rhythm. Without light to capture and deliver to the clock, their internal day runs free. In some cases, timed melatonin helps anchor the rhythm, offered in the early evening to advance the clock's phase, or timed carefully in conjunction with behavioral cues. In polar night, melatonin is present as a naturally produced signal, and it may be used in modest supplemental doses as a tool, but many find that lighting design, meal timing, and routine already offer a strong and friendly framework. The body is adaptable. It prefers a gentle approach. The research stations on the continent have gathered quiet wisdom by experience. At Concordia Station on Dome C, the air is so dry and the cold so pure that the sky on the rare clear day feels crystalline. In winter, when day never truly arrives, crews report that their sleep shifts with the season, while careful use of timed light helps steady the roster of daily tasks. At Amundsen Scott South Pole Station, the sun circles the horizon for months, then slips below in March. After that, the long night begins. People there have learned that strict but considerate schedules work well, that a balance must be found between the body's preferences and the social fabric. At McMurdo Station, with its larger population, light design in buildings supports morning alertness and evening warmth. At Vostok Station, where the cold can feel absolute, the simplicity of habits becomes an anchor. Tea at 4, a stroll in the corridor at 6, lights softened an hour before sleep. None of these details are exciting by themselves, and that is their power. They offer a steady reassurance that guides the chronobiology within. Astronomers living in this darkness often speak of the sky as a companion rather than a sight. Here, stars do not glitter, they rest, as if stitched into the dome, resolute and kind. The Milky Way hangs like a silk shawl with a grain so fine it seems to hum. When you look up, even for a short moment, your eyes and brain gather the message that night is deep. If you let it, this message can align with a calm embrace of sleep in the hours that follow. But at the station, one must be careful not to bathe too brightly in artificial light late in the inner evening, because the clock hears brightness as day. Blue rich light, perceived after your internal sunset, tells your biology to delay night. Therefore, screens are gentle after dinner, with filters that shift them toward amber, and overhead house lights fade toward warmth. These changes feel like candlelight in an old cabin. Once you begin, it is easy to continue, because the body thanks you with deeper rest. Work in polar night unfolds with a quiet steadiness. Instruments need checks. Data needs to be logged. Maintenance waits for no season. Each of these tasks offers a small, purposeful pulse to the day, and when arranged consistently, they become metronomes in human hands. You might carry a clipboard, write with a soft pencil, and feel the weight of each line as it lands on the page. The vocabulary of your work becomes the vocabulary of the station's heartbeat. When you complete a round, you return to the lounge, where books line a small shelf. A novel, a field guide, an old history of the early expeditions, or a gentle piece of poetry that distributes its syllables like warm seeds across a winter field. Reading slows your inner voice. You can pause and feel your breathing in the quiet space between paragraphs. In the body, metabolic rhythms link to the clock with a beautiful complexity. The timing of glucose tolerance shifts over the day, with morning often doubling as the friendliest time for carbohydrate intake in many people. If meals in polar night are given the habit of aligning with these rhythms, even roughly, the body smiles. The immune system, too, keeps its own time. The circulation of immune cells waxes and wanes, patrols and rests, and this pattern helps keep the peace within. The cardiovascular system listens to the circadian song as well, with blood pressure lowering modestly during sleep and rising gently toward waking. In polar night, these patterns can flatten if you allow your inner day to scatter. When you maintain them with simple routines, they hold their shape. You may hear about the phase response curve, not as a mathematical object, but as a friendly map. It says that when light visits your eyes in the early inner morning, it encourages your clock to advance, pulling your inner day earlier. When light arrives late in your inner evening, it tends to delay your clock, nudging you later. In polar night, this becomes a very practical note. If you want to keep a steady schedule that fits with station meals and camaraderie, you can use morning light to wake your body's day and avoid bright light late in your evening. Some stations use dawn simulators in sleeping quarters, lights that gently ramp from dark to pale gold, triggering the inner timetable without forcing wakefulness. People often report that this makes waking feel like being nudged by a friendly wave, rather than tapped by a pen. Caffeine, a familiar companion, lives in this landscape too. It makes wakefulness easier by gently blocking adenosine, a substance that represents the homeostatic sleep drive. Enjoyed in the early hours, it becomes part of the morning script, heightening the contrast between sleep and wake, helping the body remember the shape of day. Enjoyed late, it can push the moment of sleep a little too far forward, which may be helpful only if your inner day is running too early. In most cases, people in polar night discover that a calmer relationship with caffeine supports their circadian goals. They savor a morning cup, perhaps a second later in the morning, then shift to herbal warmth afternoon. This turns beverages into participating partners in the daily pattern. If you have ever sat awake in the quiet of a late hour and felt a wave of clarity, you know that not all wakefulness is the same. The circadian system adds a gentle ebullience to the alert phase and closes the gate of clarity at night. When these match with your schedule, tasks feel smooth. When they misalign, you work harder for the same effect. In polar night, this becomes visible in the small choices you make about timing. You place demanding tasks in the mid-inner day, and you reserve routine, simple steps for the early inner night. You allow yourself to lean into the softness of evening. You invite your mind toward warm, undemanding attention. You let your thoughts wander across ideas like skaters on a smooth pond, getting nowhere in particular, and that is perfectly fine. Still awake, comment the secret word, nebula. As the weeks flow, you may notice something gentle but meaningful. Your inner rhythm does not resist reality. It negotiates with it. The negotiation is easier when you speak to it in the language it understands. You use light, timing of meals, movement, temperature, and the hospitality of routine. You make your sleeping space friendly to darkness, even in artificial terms. with blackout curtains or a sleep mask, so that the eyes and brain can yield to night. You allow the room to be a little cooler. You keep your phone screen warm-coloured with a nighttime filter, and you keep its brightness low. The conversation continues overnight. While you rest, your body catalogues, repairs, and recalibrates. Your brain's glymphatic system, a set of channels that help clear metabolic debris, operates more efficiently during deep sleep. Your memory glue sets. Your moods are gently pressed and folded like clean linens. The station morning feels like a coastal dawn, even though no sunlight visits. Lights brighten in the common room. A quiet palette of soft white with a hint of blue, like the suggestion of an overcast morning. A few people drift in for breakfast, their voices low and kind. Cutlery brushes ceramic with a short, agreeable clink. Toast smells reassuring, and steam rises from pots as if the air is learning to breathe again. The conversation circles simple topics, the day's tasks, a light joke, a shared fact about a past expedition. These exchanges are themselves time givers. Social synchrony helps align internal clocks across the group. You leave breakfast feeling slightly more in step than you would if you had eaten alone. Your body has listened to this, and it has adjusted. If you step into a cold room for a short task, you feel the air bite and glide along the skin, not covered by clothing, a sensation that sharpens you very gently. Cold can be an alertness cue, but here it is not abrupt. You limit it to a minute or two, and you return to warmth with a pleasant sigh. Some stations use short, cool exposures as part of a waking ritual, akin to opening a window to a fresh morning in a city. This creates a stark contrast that the body reads as day. You notice that your inner clock appreciates the consistency and the order of these sensory shifts. Predictable, repeated, and kind. Too much cold, or introduced at the wrong time, would be unhelpful. As always, the body prefers the middle path. You might think quietly about shift work and how it compares. In shift work, the light-dark cycle remains, but work schedules force people to live opposite to it. This induces circadian misalignment too, often with sharper edges than polar night, because the sun is present, but not permitted to set the terms. Many of the remedies resemble those used in polar stations. Bright, well-timed light, careful control of evening light, coherent meals, consistent routines, and kindness towards sleep. You hear often that remedies should be strict, but the body responds best to a steady and moderate approach. You can apply the spirit of these methods at home during seasons of late sunrises or early sunsets as well. You dim the lights at night. You lift the brightness in the morning. You allow yourself to be guided by steadiness rather than by effort. And you notice that sleep becomes easier when it is not forced. When the body drifts further from the social clock, you may feel heavier during the nominal morning, a sensation sometimes called sleep inertia. It is the soft molasses of waking, and it melts as your temperature climbs and your cortisol rises, which are natural steps of inner day. In polar night, this inertia can feel a little thicker. There are ways to thin it. Bright light upon waking helps, applied to the eyes, but not harshly. Gentle movement begins circulation and warms the muscles. A warm drink does the rest. Then, as inner day builds, you experience a lightness, a mental clarity that suggests the gates are open. You work then, and you keep the tasks you need to do during the gate open. Later, when the gate closes, you accept the invitation to drift into simpler tasks and then into rest. A polar station has a library of quiet logs from crews spanning years. Many include notes about sleep and alertness. Some write that in early winter they felt almost exhilarating calm and sleep arrived easily. Midwinter brought a flattening, a sense of sameness, and the sleepers needed to be more deliberate about their routines. Late winter, as the hint of sunrise draws near, restored some buoyancy. The logs mention that time away from screens in the hour before bed helped a great deal. They mention that reading aloud in the common room became a soothing ritual. They mention short group walks in the corridor after dinner, which doubled as gentle exercise and social harmony. The collective wisdom reads like a lullaby. You can picture a typical evening. Dinner was warm and friendly, with stew and bread and a kind of salad coaxed from the hydroponic room. Laughter arrived easily but softly. After dinner, lights in the common areas drifted down in brightness and warmth over 30 minutes. People cleaned up slowly, rinsing plates with a gentle hush of water. Someone brewed herbal tea with mint and chamomile, and the scent lifted and gathered over the table. A projector glowed with an old film, the volume low. A few pages were read, a couple of postcards written. The wind outside pressed on the building with a dulled persistence that underlined the coziness within. Those who needed to work late took small lamps to their desks and protected their eyes with amber glasses that filtered blue light. The entire space seemed to tilt toward night, subtle and persuasive. The inner workings of the clock continue, regardless of the sky. In the suprachiasmatic nucleus, waves of gene expression, proteins synthesized and then consumed, circle with consistency, generating a rhythm that is both sturdy and plastic. These waves synchronize to the light that reaches your retinas, to the social cues you embrace, to the timing of meals. The rest of your body maintains similar oscillations, with peripheral clocks in the liver, the heart, the lungs, fat tissue, and the gut. In ideal conditions, the master clock in the brain gently herds the others, making sure they sing together. In the absence of light, those other clocks can begin to drift in their own directions if they rely only on the master's voice. Behavioral cues become important then, like the conductor's baton during a power outage, keeping the beat with the barest of sound. If you were to draw it, you would sketch a calm spiral rather than a perfect circle. That is the shape of inner time during polar night, without active anchoring. The spiral slowly walks away from the fixed point of the clock on the wall. You might be awake at midnight today, at midnight tomorrow, at 1 a.m. the next day. You might wake at 8 today, then at 8:20 tomorrow. In the short term, this feels gentle and even interesting. Over weeks, if left alone, it complicates coordination with others. Light is a way to pull the spiral inward into a circle again, or at least slow it so that it becomes a neat oval. The process is rarely dramatic. It is more like the way a river's meander changes shape as stones are placed along its banks. The aurora, when it visits, often arrives without warning and leaves without fuss, like a guest who knows how to travel. You might step outside, wrapped in layers, and look up. The ribbon flows and folds, and behind it the stars hold still. A low electrostatic crackle can sometimes be imagined, though in truth the sound does not reach you from that high, cold region. The world seems frozen in a good way. Seeing the aurora can stir something quietly resolute in you, a knowledge that you are part of a greater cycle whose time scales dwarf days. And yet, the rhythms of your cells, those modest 24-hour arcs, are just as real and meaningful. The two levels of time can coexist, the cosmic and the cellular, both stable, both soothing. On some nights, sleepiness arrives, but sleep itself feels distant. Perhaps you have drifted a little too late for your inner night to line up nicely with the clock. There is no urgency. You dim the light further. You breathe. You imagine a simple scene, like tracing the outline of a shoreline with your finger, or walking the steps of your childhood home, room by room, lingering without agenda. The mind quiets and the body listens. The next day, you add a little light to your morning routine and bring dinner forward by a half hour, as if sliding a slider gently along the rail. You will feel the result in a day or two, a soft tweak rather than a push. In the rarefied air of interior Antarctica, humidity is attenuated so thoroughly that wooden objects can shrink and reveal seams, and skin needs a little more balm. This dryness influences sleep comfort too. Humidifiers in sleeping quarters can ease breathing, helping the nose and throat remain comfortable through the night, which further helps your body regard the sleeping hours as hospitable. When sleep is physically comfortable, the circadian timing system does not need to fight friction. It can glide with less resistance to the place where it prefers to go. Texture matters. Bedding that holds warmth without causing overheating. Fabric that feels friendly against the skin. A pillow that supports the neck without making requests of you. These are small gifts to inner time. If you keep a sleep diary, you can see the pattern gradually emerge. The pages fill with times and notes. Slept at 23:45. Woke at 07:15. Felt good. Slept at 00:10. Woke at 07:40. A little heavy. Used bright light from 07:30 to 08:03. Dinner at 18:30. Tea at 20:30. Walked for 20 minutes at 1700. The pattern becomes not a calendar of obligations, but a river of gentle cause and effect. You learn your body's language. You expect drift without being startled by it. With this acceptance, sleep visits you with a deeper trust. In the long dark, the idea of dawn becomes both distant and intimately present. When late winter arrives and the first hint of twilight begins to stain the horizon, something in you recognizes a homecoming. The clock in your brain listens eagerly to those photons, even before your conscious mind does. Melanopsin cells send their map of brightness, and the master clock leans toward the new alignment as a plant might lean toward a candle. The times of meals and social moments shift slightly too, often accommodating earlier waking. On the days when the sky is still black, but brightening in the east in a way so subtle that only a practiced eye notices, the thought alone can serve as a zeitgeber. You begin to dream nights that include a sunrise, and the body begins to adjust even before it arrives. The scene returns to the common room. Someone plays a slow piece of music at very low volume, almost imperceptible. A piano line that steps forward in small, careful phrases. There is a board game in progress, not competitive, more like a shared distraction that demands only the simplest of attention. A calendar on the wall shows a small circle around the date of midwinter dinner, which has already passed, and a dotted line leading to the first predicted twilight. In the kitchen, a pot of water simmers for tea, and somewhere a set of gloves dries on a rack. Every object seems to commit to the theme of steadiness. The station itself feels righteous in its quiet purpose. This tranquil existence does not preclude curiosity. You find yourself thinking softly about how, across all distances, living beautiful organisms evolved clocks because it was efficient. To anticipate is to thrive with less effort. The clock lets leaves unroll when light arrives and furl when it departs. It lets predators and prey operate on timescales that minimize collisions or maximize them depending on the species. In humans, the clock smooths digestion, orchestrates mental acuity, regulates blood pressure, and balances hormones, all with a timing that serves. When the Earth's light rhythm disappears locally, as in polar night, the clock persists in you because anticipation remains useful even in the absence of sun. It anticipates the artificial morning. It anticipates the gentle clink of breakfast plates. It anticipates a colleague's greeting. It makes a shape out of your day. Imagine now walking down a quiet staircase toward your room. The light steps off at each landing, as if guided by an invisible hand, getting warmer and softer. Your room is tidy. The bed is inviting. The quilt smooth. The pillow fluffed. You draw the shade over the small window to cover the deep dark with a lighter form of dark, one that feels full of rest. You place your watch on the nightstand and your book beside it. You sit. You breathe in and out, longer on the out-breath. You reach for a soft woolen blanket and pull it over your shoulders for a moment while you look around the room. Everything is where it should be. Everything in the station feels like it has fallen into a secure place as well. As you settle, you might remember that in polar night, the free-running nature of the circadian system is not a flaw. It is a signature, a reminder that your bodily time is a form of resilience. Your clock can run on its own when needed, and it can harmonize when cues return. This duality helps you across the seasons of life as well, not just at the bottom of the world. There will be times when the sun in your life steps away and you keep time with your own soft strength. There will be times when signals return and you fold back into the larger rhythm with relief. Outside, the wind picks up just enough to place a finger along the eaves, producing a tiny hum. The snow settles after it and makes no protest. The air is full of cold crystals, too small to see, drifting like glitter in a novel left open near a window. The station breathes, and within it, you breathe as well. Your pulse takes a steady walk down a gentle path. The electrophysiology of sleep begins to emerge in your brain, a train of slow waves calling to one another from different hills and valleys of the cortex. Kalimba notes of synapses begin to reorganize, pruning and strengthening. This is the comfort of rest, offered without price. Day after day, the gentle practices you have adopted continue to do their work. Morning light, even artificial, is plentiful for your eyes. Breakfast anchors the day. Movement invites warmth. Evening dims. Screens comply with your wishes. Quiet arrives on schedule. The clock within you listens, nods, and aligns. Over time, the difference between the clock on the wall and the clock in your brain fades. The spiral becomes a circle. The station's populace begins to sleep in cadence, and you can sense it in the character of mornings and in the ease of evenings. On the day the first purple at the edge of the world begins to glow, it is both monumental and simple. People notice it and say so with smiles. Then they carry on with their tasks. Your inner rhythm welcomes it as a friend returning from a long trip. The difference is incremental. A handful of minutes of softened darkness meets a handful of minutes of new light. Over the following weeks, the arc grows. Melatonin secretion shrinks back to a neat window bounded by the glowing hours. Cortisol rises more cleanly into morning. Body temperature regains amplitude. Each rhythm notches a little more firmly into place, like a door that now closes with a satisfying click instead of a soft bump. You can carry what you have learned home into a different season of life, one filled with sunrise and sunset, with city lights and night shifts, with travel and holidays. You can carry the understanding that your body likes patterns, that light is the most persuasive voice, that softness persuades more effectively than force. You can keep the habit of dimming lights in the last hour before sleep. You can keep the habit of stepping into brightness after waking. You can let meals draw the shape of your inner day. You can give yourself permission to nap when the body asks, but also give yourself the pleasure of daytime movement to help serve nighttime rest. You can apply these to children, to elders, to yourself under stress, to yourself under celebration. In the quiet beyond, even the quiet of a polar station at night, the earth turns under the same rules it has followed for billions of years. The ancient cycles of rotation and revolution bring day and night, winter and summer. The animals of the ocean swim according to their own clocks. The ice holds its breath. The Antarctic sky, even when dark for months, is full of structure and peace. It is not an enemy. It is not even a challenge. It is a canvas upon which the human body writes in slow letters the story of how it remains itself when cues are faint. If you listen now, you can almost hear the softest ticking, not from a machine, but from your inner metronome, content to be cared for, happy to accept reminders, untroubled by the absence of the sun. The clock is not your master. It is your music. You can always make small adjustments to the tempo. You can conduct calmly and patiently, trusting that rhythms change and return as seasons do. And so, with the continent wrapped in its cool, blue-black blanket, and with the station whispering to you in simple domestic tones, you are welcome to close your eyes. Imagine the faint green wash of aurora slow fading like breath on glass. Imagine snow under your boots, and then imagine your boots off, your toes warm, your shoulders relieved. Imagine a kettle beginning to cool by the sink, the steam rising in smaller and smaller size. Imagine the hallway clock, not insistent, but persistent, doing its work without you. You need not keep track. You can let go. Thank you for spending these quiet minutes here, for floating with us through the long and tranquil night and the tender story of the circadian clock as it drifts and yet finds its way. You are safe and you are held, and the gentle rhythm continues. If you have not yet, you can softly tap like and subscribe so you can return to these restful voyages whenever you wish, and the playlist in the description will keep you company while you drift. May your evening be smooth, your dreams kind, and your sleep deep and easy.